Just a quick warning for this video. This is my review after 100 hours. I do have a lot of feedback in this video. I'm still enjoying the game very much. However, I'm going to hit you with some issues I've ran into as it is early access and this is feedback. So just be aware, it's not a salty rant, but there are definitely some issues I'm running into in the mid-game that I would like to explain. I have now played Path of Exile 2 for over 100 hours. I played 28 hours on a hardcore character and lost him at level 48, and I have 3 days, 15 hours, 57 minutes, and 22 seconds played on this character, and none of that is AFK. I don't leave the game running overnight, so I've been degenning it, as is tradition. Now, I am on tier 12 maps in terms of the quest, but I can defeat tier 15 maps and, kill most things currently on my character. I got like 3,300 HP. Resistances are looking all right. The damage is pretty decent. I've been playing. It's not the most amazing character in the world, but I'm healthily in the curve somewhere. Now there has been a few patches since my last talking about review of the game. So we're going to talk about the game in its current state, how it feels, and how the end game feels as well. So the first things we should address is in my last kind of review talking about the game, the little bit earlier review. They've changed a lot of things that I had actually mentioned. For instance, the currency drops were one of these. I had mentioned that the currency drops were bleeding me dry. I wasn't really able to get too many drops. Well, granted, I've been playing a lot longer and I'm in further maps, so drops are a little bit better, and I figured out the juicing of the maps a little bit, but the drops are like obviously increased. I also played a character to level 48 again through the campaign, and I was obviously getting better drops that playthrough. So in terms of currency acquisition, it is significantly improved. Also, something worth mentioning, but the rarity of items found stat in this game actually seems like majorly impactful. So if you are going to have a bunch of rarity on your equipment, you are going to notice the difference in drops. Speaking of impactful stats, we're going to get into one of my, you can call it feedback points, you can call it just an observation. Something that I have noticed, especially now that I'm sort of into the mapping here, chaos resistance is mega important. It's like every second or third mob basically has chaos damage. So you're constantly getting volatile plants and you're just getting smacked with chaos damage. There are these white mobs that have a staff, and I mean, they don't even have to be juiced or anything, just a normal white mob shoots a purple beam with a staff. And I mean, that thing can laser you almost no matter how tanky you are for like 2/3 of your health. It's the chaos damage in this game is actually kind of ridiculous. You see, in Path of Exile 1, when you were doing, we're having chaos resistance, it was kind of balanced around having like 0% resistance or, maybe 20, 30 or something. But like it legitimately feels like the game is expecting me to have 75 resistances like across the board. In Path of Exile 1, it kind of wouldn't matter too much about Chaos Res. I mean, yes, you would need some, especially later on in the game, but if you go through and die, well, then you got 5 other poor those, so it'd be like, oh shit, a Chaos mob happens to be there. Oh, you got me. Okay, go back in. But in this one, because you lose the ability in the map to have the bonuses. So if you didn't know, they reneged a bit on the way the maps work. Like if I go here and I lose, and I die to this map, the delirium goes away, but I can reattempt the map. Now, here's the thing with this. Because of the chaos, earlier on in the game, you're probably going to experience some like getting one-shotted from the chaos. And this isn't like too bad because they like unbricked the map, so you're not going to get like locked out of your atlas. But it is kind of annoying for map sustain, which is we're going to get into something else here. Now, I actually have a decent amount of maps. You can see I got some in my inventory here, and I got a pretty decent amount here. But I was struggling about 10 hours before this. I was really struggling with trying to sustain maps. And you might say, well, okay, well, that's, a skill issue or knowledge issue. You got to go into your Atlas tree and make sure that your Atlas tree, is all waste. Well, it is. It's all waste stones. I have all sustain on here. Everything I have here is related to rarity of waste stones, quantity of waste stones. Waste stones are a higher tier, quantity of precursor tablets. I have all of that. In fact, what I had to do here is go all the way quantity of waste stones, and add rare and unique monsters on the map, have additional modifiers. More modifiers equal more loot to try to maintain these maps. Now, this wouldn't really be as much of an issue, and to be honest, later on, it's kind of not as big of an issue. But in the early to mid in the in-game maps, kind of like around the like 6, 7-ish maps, you can very easily start to just run out of Waystone maps, because what can happen is, the way you actually get a ton of these maps, by the way, let me explain this to you real quick, is if you go in on the map here and you look, and there's these ones, okay, where they have these boss icons here, what you actually have to do is you basically save your highest tier waypoint, and you use like an orb of alchemy and you make it yellow. You like juice that map up all the way, and you use that on those bosses, and then that's the way you get the higher waystones, because the bosses themselves will drop like those higher tier waystones. So if you're trying to climb up in the maps, this was the only way that I was really able to continually start to sustain and actually acquire more waystones than I was currently using. So the problem with the chaos, now we're getting back to the chaos a little bit here, is if you're kind of early on in the like 6 to 7, waypoint maps, you're not going to have a lot of chaos res yet. You probably haven't min-maxed your gear. You're prioritizing, like normal resistances, and they don't actually state this in the game, but as you go to higher tier waystones, it actually is just like the campaign where it drops down your resistances a little bit. So you're suddenly cooking along at 75, and then suddenly you got 65% resistance or something in your map. You're like, what the hell happened? Did I have the wrong gear on? Well, no, you actually went to like the next bracket of maps, basically, and you don't really realize that. Combine that with the fact that you have to, so you're trying to maintain your resistances. Combine that with the fact that like chaos mobs are like actually kind of fucking everywhere. Especially on some maps, they're kind of ridiculous. So you have these opportunities for you to get one shot by chaos very often during the time that you're struggling with map sustain around the 6 or 7. So I mean, I ran into this myself. Maybe this could be not as big of an issue in other classes, but the warrior, I'm playing Sunder. To be fair, I'm playing like the longest wind up in the game, pretty much. So as I'm doing that, I have some real opportunities to get one shot and lose a lot of sustain in my maps. So I think this can aggravate some people around that mid portion of maps until you start getting tanky enough and getting enough HP, etc. In fact, I had to redo a large portion of my build, and there will be an updated warrior build guide sort of coming up here, or updated build setup, whatever you want to call it. It's not completed yet, but just to give me more tankiness with more strength when Giant's Blood, so I can wear a shield, more strength, had to increase my stun threshold with the max life. Like I did a lot of things on this tree just to try to become even tankier, as well as adding 48% chaos res. In fact, I like this other shield better as addition of physical damage, but this one's got 21% chaos res, so I just gotta have it. So the chaos resistance situation is absolutely pretty much mandatory. Okay, all that being said, if you get past this like pushback point of like the mid-tier maps and you get kind of cruising with your build, the in-game actually is like feeling pretty good. Now I haven't done like pinnacle bosses yet. I'm probably gonna get to them today or like tomorrow, because we're starting to cruise here a bit and I can go through these maps pretty decently. But now I'm at the point where I can do like the tier 15s or so, and it's starting to feel pretty good. Like the loot's starting to come in. I will say though that while the loot is coming in better at the higher tier maps, it actually doesn't seem like that different from the earlier tier maps. In fact, I can farm exalted orbs faster in the campaign. I don't know if this is something they're going to change or patch or whatever, but literally there's a spot, I was watching Zizaran on stream do this, where you can go to, it's the Lost City, and literally in the Lost City, if you go here and then go up to like the top left, there's a spot where you can just respawn and kill a rare mob. That's like literally a campaign level rare mob that just spawns right next to the checkpoint. And if you kill that mob over and over and over again, what I noticed from that is the Exile Orb rarity, meaning like how often it dropped in the Exile Orb, felt pretty damn similar to some of the in-game maps. Like I'll kill them like 3 times and maybe one of those 3 times again Exile Orb. Where if I go kill 3, rare mobs in like a tier 14, 15 or something, like I'll probably get 1 Exile Orb, maybe 2. Maybe I gotta juice the maps more, use the precursor tablet. But for the amount of effort and sustain and all this type of shit you gotta have in the maps versus like just killing the mob, that part was surprising for me. Some of the in-game mechanics feel like they're not super juiced either. Like for instance, the essences. I think the essences, when we get to greater essences, are like significantly better because you can go from magic to rare. But it seems like the whole like crafting mechanics thing has kind of been toned down. Omens are like giga rare, but they're super awesome when you have them, etc. But like the essences, for instance, I have put these points on the essence. So I have 10% chance to contain essence. I have 15% chance to get 2 additional essences. These ones just give me, more chance to contain an essence with a monster. And if you actually look at this, and again, like I'm doing, anywhere between 12 and 15s right now, and I did it basically all day yesterday. If I show you this where I'm at, I have 2 graders, and neither of these I received today. I'm just kind of getting like normal essences. So I'm not really sure like what is going to start guaranteeing the greater essence. It could just be RNG. Maybe I got to get to like tier 16s or something, or maybe just not quite there yet. Could it be giga in-game only? But the mechanics, or at least the essence mechanic, they feel a little bit gutted. So because of like the quantity of some of the mechanic items you get, like crafting in the mid game specifically just feels like a big RNG fest at the moment. Like I'm starting to get more currency, yeah, but like basically 90% of my experience with crafting is like I go in here, I grab some fucking item, and then I grab an Exile orb, and I go, okay, let's pray, boom, 17 lightning regen. That's not what I want. Maybe I could hit it with a chaos or something, but that's just like kind of it. So like it does feel like I'm basically just gambling. It doesn't really feel like I'm doing crafting. Now I understand that way later in the game, with omens, and when we have the greater essence and these types of metacrafts available, then metacrafts will be dictating a much more significant portion of the crafting. You can basically be deterministic at that point, or at least be much more reliably crafting, sort of like we're familiar with Path of Exile 1. But if we are comparing it to its prequel in Path of Exile 1, the crafting has gone from in the mid game, like, okay, I need an axe, let me put this and put this. Like the crafting is significantly dumbed down. It is going to be way easier to understand because there's way less crafting basically available. This is like a 50-50 complaint. I like dopamine. I mean, the name's literally Darth Microtransaction because it came from like a loot box meme. Like this is my little mustache on a chest here that I that's the meme. I like dopamine, okay? But but the crafting in the mid game is not extremely satisfying in its current state, just because I know I need to get to like Giga in game before I can basically do any crafting. Otherwise, it's just get Exalt, slam it on, hit chaos, slam it on, and then you just kind of pray you get lucky. You're welcome to tell me differently. I will accept other opinions. I'm 100 hours in the game, not 150 like I'm seeing some people. I'm welcome to be wrong about this, but honestly, it's in the mid game, which is where I think I'm solidly at. Like I'm not giga in game already killing Pinnacles. In the mid game ish, like I don't really feel much agency in terms of gear creation. It's just a big, RNG fest, which to be fair, in their interviews previously, they did state that they wanted the drops to matter now. Well, I mean, to be honest, they kind of got what they wanted, if that was to go, because you have to pick up every yellow, and then maybe some of those yellows come with like 3 mega stats. But then like the reality is the gear drops matter, but like you still have like an 80% chance of the gear being dog shit regardless, because if I pick up a yellow, like let's just say that, one of these yellows or something in here real quick, just for the sake of argument. Okay, let's just say that, well, that's a bad example. Yellow drops like this one. Okay, here's an item. Okay, this is actually not too bad. So let's go through the process. So this item drops. Okay, and I'm like, you know what? That looks kind of all right. We got some physical percentage. We got flat physical. It's got some strength on there. That looks kind of okay. So now you would have it. And, this drop mattered. They got what they wanted. Their drop mattered. But from here, unless I'm literally in-game with, like, valuable omen crafting, etc., which you're probably not going to do anyway, because at that point, you're probably going to craft something from, like, a base again, literally, anyway, because you're doing, like, deterministic crafting from the beginning. It's now an RNG fest. So it's like, okay, here we go. This is a good item. This drop mattered. I got the dopamine from the drop. It looks good. Here we go. Boom. 15% attack speed. Okay, that's actually quite good. Now, that's quite good, okay? Now, here we go with an Exile again, and I got lightning damage. Well, that's kind of a bummer. We need a physical percentage row or something like that. Let's just say it didn't roll attack speed and the lightning damage is still there. The item's bricked. It's basically worthless, okay? I could chaos it and try to get it, but like when you get what I'm saying here, you get where I'm going with this. So it goes like you get an item, it matters on drop because it drops very typically with like 3 or 4 affixes. It's not like they're giving you like 6 affix full item drops like on all of the time or pretty most of the time. So you still got to kind of gamble into the item So you're still having a mix of like the item drops as a decent base, but then you got to gamble. But this time you're not really gambling with a way to do, make sure that you get what you want. So even if the item dropped, you still can like pretty much brick the item. So the mid game for me, I think, is the portion, and I say mid game, and by mid game I mean like maps like 6, 7, 8. Okay, it's feeling better now because the flow of gear is starting to come in here. More like tier 14, 15 type of maps, it starts to feel a little bit better at least. But like in 6, 7, 8, it starts to feel a little brutal because of all of these reasons I'm mentioning. Chaos res is absolutely crucial, but you're busy countering like your resistances dropping from maps, dropping your resistances. So you can't really invest in chaos. Maybe you can, but then you either got to get lucky with your drops or you got to have a lot of currency, which you're not really getting at the min-game maps in order to be able to trade if you're in Trade League. If you're in SSF, God help you, this review don't help you. Okay, so so the mid's kind of brutal, and then we got to kind of juice up the maps that are on the bosses in order to be able to sustain the ability for me to get more maps. I got to go find a boss like this one, and then I got to put in I probably got the Orb of Alchemy, like a map, and make it yellow, and then go on the boss in order to make sure I can even sustain the maps. But then, if I run into a chaos mob and my chaos situation ain't so great, and get one shot, I lose the map, the boss runs away, and now I don't get that waystone sustained. Now I'm kind of like, man, it's pretty brutal. Let me go back to the person in the shop here, and if you buy these, let me show you here, if you buy out these are all gone, and now what you got to do is spam a million waystone ones in order to use your reforger to 3 1s into a 2, 3 2s into a 3. So then you have to do that to go back. So there's basically no forgiveness at all in the end game. Now, I know I'm saying a lot of like feedback points here. I don't want you to think I'm ragey, because I actually really enjoyed, to be honest, going through the end game. The waypoints and the chaos res are frustrating, but this is early access and this is feedback, okay, for the people. So I think if the goal is to have people be able to get to maps 6, 7, 8 and still feel like they can progress, this can be done a number of ways. We can change the waystone drops. If you just want to do a straight buff, you can change where you can acquire the waystones, put some emphasis less from bosses and more just around the maps or something like that. And keep in mind, I was doing all of this, the waystones in the beginning being difficult, and I'm seeing very often people come in the chat and ask me like, how are you getting your waystones? Not only that, but like I'm doing this with all of the only thing I focused my Atlas tree on in the beginning was making sure I can get waystones higher tier and quantity. That's like pretty much it. That's all of my focus on the Atlas tree. So with that, I was still kind of struggling because of the occasional death and not only cranking up, the boss mats, for instance. So I think if the idea here is a guy like me in the middle of the curve, not, the super blasters are going to blast no matter what, okay? And the people that are struggling still in the campaign are still going to be struggling in the campaign, to be honest. But the people that are like solid mid-tier people, I feel like I'm a mid-tier gamer here. We're going to struggle a little bit because I don't think it's very well explained about how both the resistances work and as well as the emphasis on chaos, which I guess is explained by you dying to chaos a lot. I mean, that is self-erringly explained. But then the bosses being so important to get the waystones. So I think we could probably have this be a little bit more clear for people, or maybe as you upgrade and complete these, like you see how tier 12 maps here, like I'm on tier 12, maybe as we are completing through these quest lines, as you're going, like I did my 1s and my 2s and my 3s, etc. As you're clearing through these, this vendor can just get upgraded. Like I don't see any reason I can't buy tier 5 maps right now. I mean, I'm on tier 12s. I would have to buy a million tier 5s, and they're really expensive. So if I completely run out of the maps because I just suck, or I'm getting disconnected, or my gear breaks and I fuck up my gear or something, like I really shouldn't have to spam by tier 1s or go on trade and buy another waystone. Like, the Keurig missions from Path of Exile 1 would give you basically a free map. You could just kind of pick now and then, and it would be a higher tier map or a mid tier map or a lower tier map, depending upon what you needed. So, and you could actually buy maps from there. These ones, I'm only buying tier 5s. And, like I said, I've defeated many tier 15 maps at this point. So, and I'm on the tier 12 quest. So the waystones are a little bit aggravating in the mid game. Okay, now I'm going to talk about what is easily the least enjoyable experience I've ever had in any ARPG. Okay. You'll notice I only still have 4 ascendancy points. So I have ran Ultimatum, the Sanctum version of the Ultimatum to get my Ascendancy twice here for the 3rd Ascendancy, okay? And it is yes, I could be better at the game. Yes, I could, get good. Yes, I could learn more about how Sanctum works. Yes, you can get even more honor resistance with relics. Yes, there's a million things you do. I'm just going to say it regardless. Melee in Sanctum is the most unenjoyable experience I've ever had in any ARPG. I think the melee in Sanctum is absolutely brutal. Now, before you say, well, you can just go do ultimatum. Yes, you're right. And, I got to 10 out of 10 on the ultimatum for the third one, and I got one shot by the tornado, which is a skill issue, and I'm not going to complain about the bird. The DPS of the bird's a little nutty, but, whatever. Okay, that was a skill issue. The Sanctum specifically with melee is I think it's actually dog shit. Full on unenjoyable, terrible. And the reason I say this is because pretty much all of the mobs are not melee friendly remotely. Okay, you have these little beetos that will just chase you constantly, and if you're playing warrior, like a lot of our windup is going to be really slow for your attacks. Okay, and these beetos are just these tiny little beetos that, God forbid, you try the melee because they have electrical explosions, will just run on you. Then you have these snakes that will burrow in and then pop up. Well, they can be rare mobs too, or blue mobs. And when they go up back out, they can have this circle on them that just explodes with timing. So sometimes what can happen is they can burrow and then come out, and the timing of that explosion just happens to be perfect. So they come out like a fucking grenade and just hit you for like 400 honor or something. Yes, you need honor resistance. Okay, I only have 20%. I'm sure I can get 75 and be fine. Okay, my point is that the map design, the mob design, the way Sanctum is not remotely close to design for warrior. You basically have to do ultimatum unless you're a god gamer. Look, if you're a god gamer and you're blasting there and you have no resistance and you're doing hitless runs with the warrior, you have my respect. You do. Okay. I'm not that person. So I'm telling you, as someone who plays a lot of ARPGs, I fundamentally disagree with the assertion that it should be that way and you should get good. They legitimately should do something about the Sanctum, or at least come out with a clear thing saying, nope, we expect ultimatum to be how melee is going to do it. And then I'll just be like, okay, so be it. But I want to know for myself the philosophy on if Sanctum is where they want it to be with melee, because in my opinion, it's absolute garbage to try to do with melee. At a minimum, it's unfun. If we throw away all of the stuff about, okay, well, DM, get good, get honor resistance, learn Sanctum, fine. I agree. I concede the point, whatever. Okay? At a minimum, it is completely unenjoyable experience and unfun. So that's where I'm currently at with Sanctum. As a side note, I don't think Ascendancy, I think it's cool that you have to like earn your Ascendancies, like it feels like a big deal, but it feels like too big of a deal. I think Ascendancies at this point are like, a lot of people just straight up like aren't even doing them, which is like kind of a bummer. Or you got people like me that are legitimately trying, and like, we haven't beat it yet. We're on like tier fucking 15 maps. And I'm not talking about the quest ones, okay? Everyone can one-shot the Sanctum quest line. All right, like the first Ascendancy, second Ascendancy, that's fine. I'm talking about the third and fourth Ascendancies. This wouldn't be such a big deal if I could retry the ultimatum, but the ultimatum 10 drops. You have to get the one that has like 10 trial runs. I'm doing those. I've only got 2 of those. And my character, like I said, has almost 4 full in-game days of playtime since launch, and I've got 2 attempts at it so far. So again, if we throw all the skill issues and the fun part of the argument out, the amount of attempts I need, like I'm level 84 at this point. And like, I still don't have my third Ascendancy because I've fucked up, twice in the ultimatum. Like, I've only had 2 attempts at it. And the Ascendancies are like basically pure RNG, or at least the ultimatum. I mean, Sanctum's like kind of RNG, but the ultimatum is like basically pure RNG. You go in there, you can have 3 or 4 mobs in a row, or mods in a row from going to the rooms that will literally brick the thing. Like, you won't be able to beat it. Maybe if you're bin or something. Yeah, I always leave the 1% beat, but like, most of you, you're not going to beat it, dude. Like, some of these mods are absolutely ridiculous. The difference I had for my first attempt was like, it was bricked by like tier 4. Like, the whole arena was getting one shot. Rares were fast. They had more mods. It was just fucked, dude. And then the second attempt I went through was literally that meme of the guy like dancing and having fun. Like, I was just one-shotting everything. There was no problem. Like, the disparity was insane. And then I got to the bird, and the bird just like absolutely shit on me with the tornado. So it's like, okay, well, I guess I need to get good scrub. That was a skill issue, though. I'm okay with the bird. My issue was the disparity in how these trials can turn out. It's like the RNG is crazy for something that's so important and like mandatory about an account with a rare drop associated to even be able to attempt it. Is a specifically weird setup with Ascendancy. So all my points basically remain the same as my previous video. Like, I enjoy the game a lot. I think this is probably my favorite ARPG I've ever played. However, there are some feedback points because of this early access that, if get fixed, will make this game absolutely phenomenal. There is some very unenjoyable experiences I've had in this game. The highs and lows in this game are actually very crazy. You'll have a huge peak amount of enjoyment. You think the game's fucking awesome, and then they'll hit you with one of the most frustrating mechanics you've ever had in a game. And then you're back to having a good time, and then you get one shot by a white mob with chaos damage, and you lose a map you really needed just to be able to continue to play the game. So there is definitely, in my opinion, some tuning-related issues with the mid-game. I don't know about like pinnacle bosses and in-game and like one-shotting entire tier 60 maps. I'm not a Giga in-game yet, but for my mid-game review here, there's some issues that are more apparent the longer you start to play in the mid game. Anyway, that's just how I feel about it. I am still having a really good time. There are new Twitch drops today. You can come on live and get them for free. Some cosmetics for the game. Link down below if you want to join me. But that's about it. I'm not trying to be too negative. I'm not trying to be too critical. It is early access. They do want feedback. This is my feedback. I am still enjoying the game, but I've definitely ran into some issues in which, I feel fairly critical about, to be fair. Okay, that's about it.